Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Greg from the Grilling to Get Away podcast. And today I'm joined with my buddy Jason. Jason Flores is a Marine Corps veteran as well as a business owner. So I wanted to get him on the podcast today, talk about his experience in the military as well as his uh, his grilling and barbecuing techniques and what he likes to do around the grill. But also I want to talk about his business too. So Jason, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast with me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, no worries, man. I was excited to get you on. My buddy Ben is currently away at Officer Development School for the Navy,
Mm.
and he's my I know, Department of the Navy. But he's gone for the next month or so. So I wanted to get some guests on here so we can keep the podcast rolling. And you and I have talked barbecue in the past. I see what you're doing out there on social media. So I just wanted to have you on here. So I appreciate you coming on.
No problem. Glad to be here, man.
Yeah. So, why don't you just tell people a little bit about yourself? Your military background, kind of where you're from, and then we'll jump into the barbecuing and grilling after that.
All right. Well, born and raised here in Wisconsin. I'm from Racine, Wisconsin. I joined the Marine Corps, not exactly right after high school like most people did. I waited until I was 26 years old to decide to make the decision to join the Marine Corps. I served from 2006 to 2012, a reservist out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's like a what do you call it? A support detachment. They have like motor T, bulk fuel, mechanics, tram, engineers, and stuff like that. I myself was trained as a bulk fuel specialist. Um, and then I did one tour in Afghanistan from pretty much all of 2010. Wasn't doing bulk fuel. We were attached to a field NP platoon, so we did convoy security. I mostly drove. I did spend some time in the turret as a gunner, a little bit, not as much as my buddy. He was using the turret all the time, but I mostly drove either a 6 by of 4 by 4 or mostly MRAP. So, and obviously in Afghanistan, we didn't really do Humvees anymore. I never made it to Iraq, but I heard Iraq was a lot of Humvees. We didn't do Humvees. We did lifted MRAPs and things like that. So, yeah, I did that whole deployment thing. Came home, wandered around a little bit from job to job. Oh, I went back to a job I had. I used to be a correctional officer for the state of Wisconsin for a while. But after deployment, decided to do things a little different and decided to go back to college. I got a degree from Carthage in Kenosha in graphic design, video editing, and a little photography. And I did some pro bono, for graphic design work for a while. And then, yeah, and then started doing the business after about let's say I graduated from college in 17. So, um, well, I guess I should say I was a federal employee too for a little while, just doing the regular 9 to 5, which was fine, paid the bills. I wouldn't say it was exciting work, being a desk jockey and all, but then decided to start my own business and then went from there, man. Just
Yeah.
a little bit, but yeah,
Yeah, no, thanks for that background. And we'll jump into like the business here in a little bit, but I
yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to um, just ask you a little bit more about your time in service. Now, I never went over to Afghanistan, so obviously we were heavy involved in both Iraq and Afghanistan at that time. So multiple deployments to Iraq, and I kind of know what the meal of the day was most of the time there. So what was the meal? What were the meals like in Afghanistan? Anything crazy that stands out for you?
So we had, like Chaha, we didn't really eat a lot of MREs. That really wasn't a
Really?
thing for us. No, I mean we had to eat them. We went on missions and
Mm.
um sometimes the I call them the kitchen crew would come out and they would, I don't know if you ever had those where it was MREs, but they like served it up
They
like a
did,
buff
yeah.
like a buffet,
There's a big tub of it, right? And then they
Yeah.
just heated it up.
Yep. And then you just kind of scooped it on like a cardboard tray.
Yeah.
But the chow hall itself, um, every Friday. Every Friday was either steak and lobster or steak and crab legs. Now, you got
Jeez,
to
you guys are
understand,
living large over there in
yeah,
Afghanistan.
yeah, we were I was on Camp Dwyer. And Camp Dwyer
Okay.
was just outside of Marja, which most of the operating we did was in Marja, down in Helmand province or in that area. And but the thing is, like I don't know how fresh it was because if you look geographically, where we
Yeah.
were is very far from oceans and and where you can raise cattle. So I
Mhm.
believe most of it came through Dubai. But either way, I mean, during the week was your usual breakfast was your eggs, bacon, sausage, pancakes, waffles, strawberries for the waffles and stuff. Lunch was usually just some sort of casserole, dried burgers,
Mm.
hot dogs. But yeah, that was pretty much it. And then at the very end, at the very end of the chow line was for the locals because most of them came from Tibet and India to help
Mm.
on base was curry. They always had curry for themselves. They had like
Yeah.
a spicy curry and a regular curry, and sometimes I would just indulge in that because you just got so sick of walking in and eating another super dry cheeseburger again. And when it came to beverages, we never got there when the full refrigerator was stocked with ribbits and sodas and stuff. The only thing that was ever left was just ice cold V8
Ah.
or or water, which we already had. So I
Yeah.
very rarely ever got my hands on an actual like canned beverage like a
Mm.
lemonade or an iced tea or a Coke or something. It was always ice cold um V8 or just water. But yeah, the food, I mean, like MREs are MREs. I mean, everybody has their own. Chili Mac was always a huge hit.
Chili
Um,
mac with the jalapeno cheese, right?
yeah, yes, yep. I was a huge fan of the powdered butter with the cracker, man. I don't know, it just because I'm a
I never had
huge
the powdered butter. I didn't.
oh
I never
man,
had that.
it's you figure it'd be dry and make you choke, but as soon as you put it in your mouth, like it pretty much melts and tastes like well, I would say it tastes more like margarine
Mm.
or can't believe it's not butter kind of taste to it, but
Hmm.
I mean, I'm a huge like one of my favorite snacks is just butter toast. If I'm in a hurry
Okay.
and I need to grab a snack or just butter on a piece of bread is like 99% of the time if I'm grabbing a quick snack, it's butter and bread. So I like that a
Mhm.
lot. But yeah, chili mac was a huge one. Spaghetti and meatballs was a huge one. But other than that, I mean, you know how Marines are. If you leave that MRA box open, you go grab it and half of it's missing.
Yeah. Someone that
Shoves an
takes the
egg
good
omelet in
stuff.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're just kind of stuck with whatever.
Right.
But of course we had a PX there, so we're always like on base. So we're always had like gummy worms and beef sticks and snacks to have out on the mission and stuff. So sometimes
Jeez, you guys are
um,
living large,
yeah,
man.
well,
Like,
we're pogues, man. I wasn't a grunt. I was out there
yeah,
living that grunt life, man. We were maxing and relaxing, in these MRAPs and
yeah.
air conditioning and everything. So I can't really say I had a hard deployment. Yeah, it was hard because you're away from home and the
Right.
missions were hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes things got dicey, things got spicy and scary. But for the most part, I mean, I really can't. I was ready to do it again. I came home. I'm like, let's just do another one.
Yeah.
Let's go back. That wasn't too bad, but.
Okay. Man, well, like obviously I had a little different experience. Like we would get flown in like surf and turf on like the Marine Corps birthday, or
Oh,
they
okay.
or like New Year's Eve when you're out there on post or you're out there in the middle of nowhere. Like they'd fly in with a helicopter and just drop it off for you, and then
Mm.
they get back out of there. But we lived heavily on MREs, and then whatever the locals were serving when we got comfortable with them, like lamb and shish kebabs, and they made this awesome like I don't know, like a cucumber, onion, tomato type of salad that we would have sometimes with the kebabs and stuff like that. But man, a little bit different experience. What about barbecue? You guys, have any barbecue or anything that you can remember over there?
No, we did not grill out at all. But sometimes what was very cool is we would have the team I was on, we had a terp with us.
Yep,
And
interpreter. Yep.
yeah, and a couple times while we were on mission, we actually the convoy itself put together whatever we could, whether it was American dollars or just cool stuff we had, and we would buy a goat from a
Yeah.
local village, and then the terp would actually dice it up, cook it up,
Mhm.
make a stew, and then he would make that bread that they kind of stick to the side of walls.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
forgot what that's called, like manna or mana or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was probably the closest thing we had to like something that was just like cooked over fire was that.
Hmm.
We didn't have a grill. Not, I mean, not that I remember. Maybe there was somewhere on base, someone was grilling or,
Sure.
putting some dogs and burgers on the grill or whatever. Um, I know there was one base that was having a Fourth of July grill out, but we ran into some trouble on the way and we couldn't quite make it to that. So because we were looking forward to it, like, oh
Yeah,
man,
yeah, of course.
this
That's
horse
how it
meat that they
goes.
were selling at the, giving at the chow hall, it would be nice to
Yeah.
actually have like, but we never made it. So and then yeah, so like yeah, that was really the only open fire eating we did is when sometime maybe that happened. Obviously I was there 8 or 10 months, that maybe three times that happened,
Okay.
but it was still pretty cool. I mean, watching them
Yeah.
dress it and gut it and eat it, and we're eating I think it was not goat, it was sheep.
Cheap.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was sheep.
Yeah. So very similar to kind of what we would do as well. Like our interpreters would go out, like obviously we didn't trust anybody except for our interpreters. So they would go out
Right.
and they would source it and
Yeah.
they'd get it and then they'd cook it up for us. So that's awesome, man. So you come back home. Thank you for your service again. I
Oh,
appreciate that.
thank you for yours.
Yeah, yeah. So you come back home, you kind of get back into the civilian world a little bit. And when do you first kind of start getting into barbecuing and grilling?
So um I so I've always been a tailgater. So anytime I got a chance to go to a Brewers game in Milwaukee, I always tailgated. I didn't just like to walk in the game and walk around. And my first experience of grilling, I never really was like I always use this little smoky, right? I never brought the full size Weber or any kind of counterpart of that. It was always just a little old smoky. Um, I never was very good at lighting the coals. I didn't know there was a thing as a chimney back then, where you can light, all that stuff. So
Yeah,
I did the usual,
lighter fluid.
yeah, you put way too much charcoal than you need for, and then you just douse as much lighter fluid on as possible, lighter up,
Mhm.
and then obviously cook everything at a super extreme temperature so it cooks super fast. So most everything is burnt and half cooked. So that was kind of my first experience of just kind of grilling out after I got home. And then kind of moved to the propane grill. I mean, I know I moved away from charcoal just because I always had trouble with it. I never had the patience for it. One
Sure.
thing I had trouble with once I came home was I had no patience for waiting for anything. So I just kind of went more the propane route where you just click the button, heats up. But even then, I never really messed around with temperatures, like this needs to be at 300 or 275. I just turned it on, turn all of them on just to get the grill heated up. Then I would shut, a side off and then keep one side on so I can move stuff over to the indirect heat to kind of keep it warm, but never really fooled around too much with any kind of specific kind of charcoal grilling or styles or anything. Just heat and food was pretty much where I kind of started out. So,
Hmm. Well, I think that's I mean, that's a good to hear. Like, I think a lot of people have similar experiences when they first start out, like temperature control, how to start it, how to keep it going, and then transitioning from charcoal to propane, just because it's a little bit easier. So I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that. So from there, then what kind of happened, and what was your evolution like?
well, I started getting to, I noticed that some of the meats I would cook just wouldn't cook like other meats, obviously. Like, obviously,
Mhm.
burgers aren't going to cook like steak. Steak's not going to cook like pork, and obviously in chicken. So I had like, well, I noticed when I would throw everything on the grill, like I would have brats here, a couple of ribeyes sitting here, a couple of thick pork chops, just have the whole smorgasbord on the grill. And I'm grilling it as it all kind of just cooks the same, and
Hmm.
then I would bring all the food in, and people are ready, got the pasta salads and the pies and the sodas, everything else for these like little family cookouts or birthday parties or, holidays. And then obviously everyone loves the burgers and dogs, so it's the easiest, but the steaks are super dry, super tough.
Hmm.
Pork chops are completely burnt. Chicken is a crispy but still pink on the inside, and here I am like, well, I guess I can't do that. So obviously I went to, one of the best tools that a Gen X can go to, and that's YouTube.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like whatever. Like well, and then that's why I got introduced to a heat thermometer. I
Okay.
never, I always thought though, you had to, do the
And
test on, and You're like, yeah, and you poke the steak. I'm like, oh, that's medium. And then you take it off and it's beyond well. I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. So once I got that meat from thermometer, which I said that was my evolution to finally get properly cooked and properly temped food was getting a really a really good heat thermometer. So now I mean I use everything. Even when I like boil mac and cheese, I make sure that those noodles are al dente by putting that heat probe in there. I'll probe in there to make sure everything. So the heat probe is pretty much what made me become a lot better on the grill to make sure everything was temped correctly.
Nice. So what kind of smoker or grill do you got right now?
I have a Trigger Pro Series 34. So
Okay.
it's my first one, my first smoker. I've always had a propane sitting in there, but right now I'm also looking for a Weber. But yeah, I like my Traeger. It's not a digital one. It doesn't hook up to a phone. It doesn't have the Wi-Fi, which I wish it did because I'd made my first brisket a while ago, and I was watching this YouTube video. I'm like, that's the way I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it exactly the way this guy's doing. Temp, the time, the wrapping, the everything. And he smoked his for like, many hours at 190.
Mhm.
So I had in my brain 190. But my trigger goes from 180 to 225.
Oh, okay.
So instead of just smoking at 180 for a lot longer, which I should have done, I just like, well, I guess I'll do it at 225 and just, I got I didn't have the heat probe that connects to your phone. I just had the trigger one that you have to go down and press the button and look.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I thought most briskets, most videos are like, do it at night, go to bed, wake up in the morning, check the temp. I'm like, okay, cool. So
Mhm.
I put it in at like, I don't know, I want to say 11:30 at night, so it's pretty late, and went to bed. And I got up in the morning, like maybe like 6:30. And I think what's the tempted wrap it is like 175, 165 or something like that. They want you to wrap it or something like that.
Yeah,
And
about
so
that time. Yep.
yeah, and so I went to check the temp and it was already at like 198.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
That's
Uh-oh,
not a bad
so
thing.
not too bad. And so and then I got sidetracked a little bit, so I didn't really get it off the. Well, then I turned the smoker off because I freaked out, so I just turned it off to shut down, you know,
Okay.
and then and so then I wrapped it all up, and then I forgot that I had to like turn it back up to temp, and then I think I accidentally turned it to 250 instead of
Mm.
back to 225, and I threw it back on and wrapped it and put the heat probe in there, and I'm like, man, this thing hit 208 pretty quickly, and then
Yeah.
took it back out and wrapped it, and then I let it sit for like 3 hours, pulled it out, and very juicy, very, the flavor was on point, but I didn't get the bend. The flat was completely dried out. Obviously, the point with all the fat was pretty good, but my wife hates fat. She's only
Okay.
a lean. She's a lean brisket connoisseur and lean only.
All
And
right.
so here I am. She's trying to go. It's good. I'm like I'm pretty sure it tastes good, but but so yeah, that was so yeah. I got the Traeger. I do enjoy it. I use
what
it.
what made you pick the Traeger?
So I was just doing a lot of YouTube research, a lot of
Mm.
Amazon reviews, and obviously talking to family and friends.
Okay.
And the first time a trigger was mentioned to me was a couple years ago by a friend of mine that moved to Florida, and he said that went to I think he actually went to the Milwaukee Sports Show, and he said they had a deal and he just bought it and whatever else. And he's always like showing smoking this and smoking that. And then I wanted one and I went to go look, at the price of one. I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. So I started looking at the ones that look like fridges that,
Yeah.
open up the shelf. And a lot of reviews weren't popular. I don't know if it was the smoker didn't smoke or the
Mm.
people using it just didn't like using it. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what it was, but it was enough for me to, to not use it. And then pretty much more and more I talked to, I just kept hearing Traeger, Traeger, Traeger. Every once in a while, you hear
Sure.
Pit Boss, Pit Boss, and then someone told me, well, if you buy the right Pit Boss, the guy has some Traeger, left Traeger, and started Pit Boss, and so the first line or the first two lines of Pit Boss is pretty much a Traeger until they got
Mm.
the cease and desist. I was like, so I was kind of looking for those, but I didn't really know how to look for those because the
Yeah.
price point was better for me. So I went down to the Navy base, kind of close to where I live in Northern Illinois, and they got a
Mm.
PX down there, and they had
Yeah.
a huge sale on on smokers, and all they had was triggers. And I'm like, you know what? Traeger is the one I hear more than most. I hear that the that reason why is because the auger never gives you an issue ever. I hear there's never any kind of back burning. There's never any kind of clogging. It starts up when it's super cold. It operates very well no matter the temp,
Mhm.
the weather, no matter what kind of pellet you put in. So I'm like, well, that's what I want. I just want something
Mhm.
that works all the time. I don't want to be stoking anything. I don't want to be fixing anything. I don't want to have to empty out pellets, clean it before I use it every single time. I just want to turn it on and use it. So
Mhm.
Trigger was that was the reason why, is because it just had the best reviews as far as just versatility and not ever breaking down. So that's why I went that route.
Yeah, it's nice. We hear that a lot too. So a lot of people between Traeger, Pit Boss, the ease of it, and then just like the general name awareness. I did have one of my buddies on, Joe Zizzo. He's a certified Traeger technician. So if something does happen to somebody's Traeger, like what he was doing before, like he'd go out and service it and things like that. And I had him on the podcast. You can go back and listen to that if you're listening to this and you're interested in hearing his take on it. But yeah, you definitely got to keep the auger clean and stuff so you don't have any issues down the road. So you transitioned from kind of charcoal, you went to propane, now you're at the Traeger. Anything else that's been on your mind about you're looking at getting
Yes, so I've been on Marketplace and I want to get I noticed there's a lot of they're called Weber, not Weber Premium, but it's the Webers that are kind of connected to a table.
to the table? Yeah.
Yeah. So because one thing I don't like about my Traeger is I never bought the shelf that sits outside of it. So
Okay.
I'm always fumbling with my hands full trying to like make the switch without having a shelf. So I figured if I'm gonna get a Weber, I want one that's connected to a table so I can have stuff right there. I mean, I suppose
Yeah.
you can probably just get a little plastic table, whatever, but I kind of like it all in one. But
Yeah.
I noticed a marketplace in this area does have quite a few. Some of them are still pretty expensive. I mean, for
Yeah.
someone that's like, well, I've only used it for 3 years. I bought a brand new for 400 and I want, 280. I'm like, no, I'm not,
Yeah.
no, like you. So I'm looking at some 22-inch Webers. I want to get back into the charcoal. I want to actually, what a good goal for me is I would love to smoke either ribs, pork belly, or even a brisket using wood on a Weber by temperature control. I would like,
Okay.
that it interests me. It's something that kind of keep me occupied for the day. And I don't know, just almost kind of like when I don't know if you ever like changed, a light switch in your house for the first time, and you're just like, like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I did
Yeah. Yeah.
something that's So I kind of want that feeling. Like, yeah, I did. I smoked a piece of meat, the way it's been done for years before the easy bake ovens were invented. So,
Yeah, no, we hear me and Ben, and we love our Webers.
yeah.
And it's definitely an art and a science. You have to take a little bit of time to get used to it and understand how it works. But once you figure it out, it's pretty simple and pretty easy to keep doing it. So that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that you're looking at some charcoal as well as having that in addition to your Traeger, because I do know there's a lot of advantages to having the Traeger or the pellet smokers. For ease as well as time and things like that. You can kind of set it and do some other things where wood or charcoal, it takes a little bit more babysitting. So I love to ask this question quite a bit. Well, before I do that, so you transition and you're doing barbecue and you're grilling. Now you have a business too that is kind of food related. I guess you could look at it like as something that's complementary to some things you might be able to do on the grill or the smoker. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your business, Moon Dust, and how that came about?
All right. So yes, I have a business called Moon Dust, and Moon Dust is a all-purpose sweet blend topping. I have a bottle right here for the camera. Looks like this.
Nice,
All right. So
like the new labels.
yeah, I know, pretty cool. A little more simplistic.
Hmm.
There's all kinds of reasoning behind that too. But so like you do savory things. You do all purpose with garlic, and you got rubs and sauces, and
Yeah.
and I decided to figure out to go the opposite direction. Like, what kind of all purpose can we put on like, let's say, even meat,
Mm.
for instance pork, and I'll get to that in a second. Is when you go to the grocery store and you go to the seasoning aisle, obviously that it's a lot going on now. Not a
Yep.
lot more
Yep.
than many years ago, but it's just, I mean, it's huge to the selection. Even if you go to a small grocery store, quite a bit of selection. But when you want to go look for Sweet topping, the only two things you're ever going to find is either powdered sugar or cinnamon and sugar. That's it.
Hmm.
And I combined both of them in my moon dust along with brown sugar and cane sugar and kind of blended it. The specifics of it is how much of each ingredient I put in that makes it so delicious and gives it that good taste. Now, what's not, I like about it, it's no sweeter than just a regular teaspoon of sugar. All right, it's not
Hmm.
gonna like blow your teeth out of your mouth or make your neck cramp up from like drinking like maybe a generic grape soda or something. It's
Yeah,
not going to
yeah.
do that. It's very subtle, but you can taste everything I put in there. You can taste, and I use Saigon cinnamon because Saigon cinnamon is a little bit more potent than regular cinnamon. I wouldn't say it has a spice or a bite, but you can taste it through all the ingredients. I tried it with regular cinnamon, and the other ingredients kind of drown it out a little bit. So I can put the same amount of Saigon cinnamon, and Saigon's the best organic cinnamon because all the ingredients are all or organic. I
That's
didn't want
great.
any. I don't want any kind of bleached or processed products. I mean, yes, they are cheaper when you manufacture it, but I like organic because then it's gluten free for people who have that going on. Um, and uh, and it's awesome. So a couple of things on the grill I've already used it on. I had a friend do it, so I decided to do it. I made candy bacon with this.
Okay.
All right, so instead of using just the brown sugar with the syrup or the jalapeno juice, I actually put heavy amounts of moon dust on the bacon before I drizzled some syrup on there, and I got to say it turned out pretty good. It does have a sweeter taste. It doesn't just have that molasses taste from the syrup and the brown sugar.
Hmm.
It does have quite more sweet taste to it. And I used it when I smoked a couple of. So I went to the gas stations where we live, Quick Trips. They for like I want to say like 3 for $5. They got these little pork medallions
Yeah,
that
yeah.
are like wrapped in bacon, you know.
Yep. I,
Um,
I'm familiar.
and so I decided to kind of dust those with moon dust and kind of give them a smoke. And there was some sweetness to it. You know, it's not like you're biting into like a Pop Tart or anything. But it did add a little sweetness to it. It was a little enjoyable. I didn't really put any sauce or seasoning on it. I added a little couple jalapenos to each bite because I like sweet and spicy.
Hmm.
That's one of my favorite flavor profiles is sweet and spicy. If you a little sidetrack, if you never had it, try some Mexican hot chocolate because it's actually spicy chocolate. So as you're drinking the hot chocolate, it has like a little spice to it, and
Hmm.
just for that. But that's what I was kind of going for. I wanted something sweet, but something that's going to give you a little heat too. So it does. Like I said, it's not over sweet. Obviously, you can put as much as what you want. I wouldn't go little. I would put a little bit more than you think you need because it is a powder. It's powderized. It's got a powder sugar consistency. So it's not going to come out like sugar or cane sugar. It's not very coarse. It's fine. It's powder. So if you're going to let it sweat into the meat, it's going to disappear. It's going to pretty much dissolve and it's going to leave like a brown hint because the brown sugar that's in it, like the
Yeah.
powdered sugar and the regular sugar will kind of dissolve and the brown sugar will dissolve. But once you notice the meat has sweated and sucked all that into it, I would put a little bit more on top so you actually can see it and throw it on a smoker and smoke it however you smoke it, the temp, the time, whatever. So yes, it's very delicious. Not to mention what I've also made it for, which is for like pancakes and waffles and hot chocolate and crepes and everything else. But my buddy was like, "Hey man, I smoked pork chops with it. It's fantastic." I'm like, "Well, I didn't design it for that, but let's
Well, you
go
got
do it." So,
the savory of the pork chop. You got the sweetness of the blend. So
mhm.
that's great. And I appreciate the time and the thought you put into the ingredients. You know, all organic, and then the different
Yes,
types of cinnamon. A lot of people don't understand. Like, there's a lot of trial and error, a lot of testing
yeah,
when you're putting together something like a rub or a seasoning or a blend like that. So I appreciate and understand that what the process that goes into that. I actually used it this morning. I made my son's some French toast, and I put some of that on top of it. So rave reviews from the boys. So
yeah, I like it. Yeah, the
yeah.
kids, I'm telling you, man. Yeah, when people come to the vending events and I see them walking by with their kids, so,
Mm.
because if I get them
Get
kids
the
on it,
kids
man.
hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get those
Well,
return customers.
we got a couple minutes here left here. So, where can people find you? Find more about what you're doing with Moon Dust, and then just follow you in general.
All right. So I'm on all the social medias. TikTok is at Try Moondust. Um, Instagram, Try Moondust. Facebook is just Facebook/Moondust.
Hmm.
The website is www.trymoondust.com. That's where you can find it. I just sell the one thing. Um, I also have a Discord. I don't really remember the link on it, but the Discord is called Moon Dusters, where you can kind of join and talk about sweet treats and what you would like to
Sure.
use moon dust on and things like that. So those are the places that you can find me.
Okay, that's perfect. And I'll post a link to all that stuff down in the show notes. So if anybody's interested in going out and trying some moon dust or following Jason to see what he's up to as he's building his business, go ahead and do that. But what I like to ask my guests at the end here, because our podcast is really focused towards like newer barbecuers and grillers, what are the top three barbecuing equipment or utensils that you would recommend for somebody that's just getting started, assuming that they just bought their grill or their smoker. What are the top three accessories or pieces of equipment that you would recommend for somebody that might just be getting started on?
Uh, a temp probe, a good
Okay.
one. Don't buy. I always say buy cheap, get cheap. Spend the $50, get a good quality one. It'll last for a very long time. It'll give you super accurate reads. And that's going to help you along until you feel that you mastered enough where you kind of know where it's at. Um, Second is just stainless steel tools. Don't get the plastic spatulas from Dollar Tree that are
Okay.
flimsy. Get nice sturdy tools. That's not going to hold your meat. It's going to flip it well. I don't really like the tongs that have the triangle ends on it. I
Okay.
like the more traditional, or just like the flat tongs. I feel like they move food better. That
Mm.
the pointy tongs, I guess you could say, they just stab the meat sometimes, or they might rip into it when you don't want the juices to be left. If you're kind of like heavy handed with your gripping. And honestly, I think this is an important one. A good apron. I'm an apron guy.
Oh yeah.
I am sloppy when I cook. Now,
Yeah,
if you
I'm not a
I
big apron guy, but I
uh,
know there's a lot out there. What kind of brand do you recommend?
I got one on Amazon. It's a denim one, but it's a light denim just because like I just get grease stains all over me. And it just so happens that every time I decide to grill out, I'm wearing a shirt I literally just bought. And then once you get a grease stain on your shirt, I don't care how much shout you put on it,
It's
it's there
over.
forever.
Yeah.
And if you get a good one, you can have a little pocket for your temperature probe. You got pockets to hang your tools from your belt. You kind of look more versatile than what you're actually doing. But I just like it because if you're putting sauce on and rubs on, and in after you're done cooking, you're at a party, you're hosting a party, and you really don't want to look like you like been in the kitchen all day. I recommend a pretty good, and they're nice. They really do
Mm.
protect your clothes, and they're versatile, and they have a lot of use to them. But yeah, my third one would be an apron because I mean I use aprons to wash dishes, to cook on the stove, to anything. Anytime I'm in the kitchen doing anything, because I'm a sloppy person,
Mm.
I have to have the apron on because I'll get myself full of water and grease. So if you're like me and you're kind of heavy handed with everything you do, you don't know how to do the light touch on anything. I would suggest an apron.
Well, good man. I really appreciate that. That's some good tips there, especially on the tongs there. We haven't really talked too much about like the actual types of tongs, some of the serrated edges versus just like the flat ones. So that's a good insight there. But Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. Again,
Thanks for
we'll
having me.
post,
Yeah,
yeah, no problem. We'll post your links down below in the show notes so people can go out and find you. But to everybody else, we appreciate you listening and hopefully get a chance to get out and grill.
all right. Thank you for having me.
Sure, no problem.
All right.